Oh, did we just lose Rose? We did. We just lost Rose. We need Rose to start. So hopefully Rose will be coming back in just a minute. All right. I don't want to wait too long to start, so I guess I will go ahead and start, and hopefully Rose will join us soon and at any minute. So first, welcome to our webinar today on becoming a life coach with Jeff Singal. This is a smaller, more meeting type webinar today, so there will be a little bit of chance for interaction and questions at the end. But I'm very happy to have all of you with us, and we are recording today, so we will be able to share the recording later. Now, first, before we get into the thick of it, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors of this webinar. This webinar is partially supported by CLAIR, the Japan Local Government Center, which I know all of you JET alumni are familiar with, and CGP, the Japan Foundation Center for Global Partnership. Thanks to them, we are able to support this webinar and make this webinar happen today. And I see that Rose has come back and joined us. Hi, Rose. Glad you've made it back. All right, before we get to start, I'd like to introduce USJETAA, the US JET Program Alumni Association. For those of you who are not familiar with it, we are a nonprofit organization based in the United States, and we focus on furthering US-Japan relations by supporting the network of JET alumni primarily in the US. My name is Bahia Simons-Lane, and I'm the executive director of USJETAA, and I will be the moderator for tonight's session. So our mission is to provide support and resources to JET alumni, and one of the main ways we've been doing that is through our careers and professional development webinars. If you like this program, I encourage you to make a donation to support USJETAA's programs. And if you're not yet a member of USJETAA, please become a member. I will put some links in the chat shortly. Now I'm going to turn this over to Rose to introduce JETAA Western Japan. And Rose, for some reason you are sideways.
Okay.
Can you try turning your phone the other way?
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. That's better.
Okay. Comedy to keep us all laughing. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Bahia, for helping us host this really great session. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Rose Tanasigaran. I am a JET alum in Kobe, Japan, and I've been involved with JETAA Western Japan for over 10 years now. Currently, I'm holding the treasurer position, and if any of you in Western Japan would like to get involved, please do. We have a Facebook group, and that's where our events are listed, and we're always looking for new volunteers, new ideas for future webinars. And thank you again to USJETAA for co-hosting this event and for making a recording so that more alumni are able to learn from this really valuable session. And it's my great privilege to introduce to you a JETAA WJ member, Jeff Singal. And Jeff Singal, not enough coffee. Sorry, Jeff.
That's all right.
Jeff has been really, really great. He approached JETAA Western Japan last year, hoping to get some practice being a personal coach, and he offered some free sessions to some of our members. So I was one of the lucky ones that got to benefit from his practice sessions, which were not practice at all. I really gained a lot from working with Jeff. I think it helps to have somebody to brainstorm aloud with, because I think oftentimes a lot of us have ideas, but we don't know where to go, or we don't have the confidence, or it's just really nice to have somebody with some positive feedback and some words of encouragement and some questions that some leading questions that you may not have thought of yourself. So I highly recommend, exploring getting personal coaching. But of course, personal coaching is also a career field. And that's why Jeff is here today to share his experience with us. Take it away, Jeff.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Sorry, Jeff, before we get to you, I just want to very briefly go over the virtual community guidelines, especially because this is a meeting format and we can all see each other. So it should go without saying, I'm sure, but just be respectful of others and don't share anything in the chat or anywhere here that you do not want to want shared publicly. And we will be recording the webinar today, and there will be time at the end to ask questions. But if you come up with a question as Jeff is talking, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll ask the questions in the chat first, and then there'll be an opportunity during the Q&A for you to come on and ask your question live. Okay, now without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Jeff.
All right, thank you, Bahia. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, depending on your geographical location. I want to thank you for joining today's career webinar presentation. I have an honest confession to make. I spent months writing and preparing for today, but not getting much further than the opening paragraph until Thursday afternoon last week, when the writer's block finally gave way to inspiration. And I began thinking about the long journey it took to be ready for today. Initially, this presentation was scheduled for March 26th because I had to return to the US since my mother was in her third year fighting cancer, and she had decided to stop chemo treatment the day after I arrived. 1 week after arriving back in Boston, unfortunately, she passed away on April 6th. After a total of 1 month in quarantine and 2 weeks spent in the Boston area, I was finally able to return home to my wife and 2 daughters here in Nagoya on May 9th, just about 2 weeks ago. And I've been transitioning back into my daily routine as an educator and more recently as a life coach. From April 9th, the life coach I hired well over a year ago has been instrumental in helping me transition back into being a life coach. Later, I'll get into greater detail about what a life coach is. I mentioned this incredible journey, this crazy but incredibly long journey, because it was long and stressful and filled with many transitions over just a short time frame. For example, in no particular order, leaving my family here in Japan, returning to the Boston area in the US, flying during this insane pandemic, quarantining, saying goodbye for the last time to the house I grew up in since I was just 4 years old. And unfortunately, the passing of my mother and 2 other family members just a week later, and using old and new forms of technology while in quarantine to have human contact. Each of us is on a path with many, many transitions along the way. And as an exercise many months ago, out of curiosity, I wrote a list, if you can see it, just on some scrap paper, of 25 transitions in my life, such as employment or unemployment, life after JET, spiritual and mindfulness pursuits, living abroad, returning to your home country, marriage, death of a family member or a friend. I highly recommend you try this for yourselves. And if you feel comfortable doing so, please contact me and share your list, because I would really love the opportunity to talk about transitions with you. I began my journey as an educator in the early 1990s when I worked as an office manager at a school that my parents had just opened in the Boston area. As much as I enjoyed working in the family business, it was definitely time to spread my wings and return to the classroom. So in late August of 1995, I found myself on a trans-Pacific flight to Japan, where I spent 2 life-changing years in Ueno City in Mie Prefecture, which is now known as IGA. That was on, of course, on the JET program. And after JET, I left and attended the School for International Training in Brattleboro, Vermont, where I got a master's degree in international education and intercultural management. After that, I stayed in the Boston area working in international education. And then I moved to Nagoya in late December 2005, where I taught English at a private junior and senior high school and a couple of other places for about 8 years. And then absolutely one crazy day, literally overnight, I suddenly decided to start an English language school for a variety of reasons. So with my wife's help in 2013, we opened a newly built school where together we operated the English school and my wife taught music. Believe it or not, I probably don't look it, but I'm 84, sorry, 54 now. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I don't recall exactly when it began, but perhaps it was around the age of 48, 49, when I noticed feelings of being stuck and wanting more out of life. Anxiousness, uncertainty about my future, what my legacy would be for my daughters. So, can any of you relate to any of that? I'm sure there must be some of you. Looking back now, it was the start of what is commonly known as a midlife crisis, although I prefer midlife transition, or what my coaching coach calls a midlife opportunity, rather than a midlife crisis, which sounds far too harsh for what I'm experiencing. Instead of making drastic changes, such as buying a sports car, I've chosen to refocus and re-energize myself on a new coaching path. So this next part is what I now call Seismic Shift Saturday, September 8th, 2018. It was a day when there was a seismic shift in my universe. Long story short, instead of teaching from 9 to 5, I taught just one 30-minute class because everybody had canceled for one reason or another. And this had never happened before or since. And I truly believe it happened for a reason, because the universe was helping me transition from educator to a life coach. I spent hours doing all sorts of Google searches, beginning with, can you believe this? Pursuit of happiness. Can you believe that? Honestly, pursuit of happiness. The next thing you know, I discovered life coaching. The more I thought about this as a profession, the more I realized that I wanted to become one, because I was beginning to feel burned out from being an educator. After spending hours Googling all sorts of things, I wound up hiring a life coach. She was terrific. And because of her, significant positive changes happened, which made me a true believer in what a life coach can do to help someone get out of a rut or a negative pattern and arrive at a more enjoyable, positive, playful place. On January 2018, I took the leap and I started an online certification course through Coachville. And I'm now moving toward my dream. I'm experiencing firsthand the immense benefits of hiring a life coach. I've become a huge advocate because there's no better way to understand life coaching, how life coaching works, than to find a life coach of your own. Additionally, being stuck in a rut can be intensely stressful and debilitating. Hiring a life coach will help you discover your life purpose and goals. Together, you'll be able to play better for your dream. After all, it's nearly impossible to get there playing by yourself. I know this from personal experience. By this point in the presentation, I'm sure you're wondering what a life coach is. As I mentioned earlier, I'd never heard of a life coach before Saturday, September 8th, 2018. And even while I Googled it and learned more about this profession, there was still a lot that remained unclear. The following is the Coachville definition of what coaching is all about. And there are 5 parts to this definition. I'll read each one and then explain in greater detail. 1, a profound personal relationship. 2, wherein the coach guides the player. 3, in pursuit of playing better for their dreams. 4, through perceptive observations. And 5, co-creative conversations. Some folks have gotten the idea that coaches talk with you to help solve your problems. And others think that coaches tell you what tasks to do and hold you accountable. Life coaching is not about problems or tasks, because life is not about problems or tasks. Life is for playing for our dreams, and coaching is about playing together to play better, also known as practice. Number 1, a profound personal relationship. Coaching is a personal relationship. Your coach will care about you as a person, and you will care about your coach. It is very different than the ideas we got about an industrial age professional that was robotic and impersonal. Coaching is profound because it goes beneath the surface of life's circumstances into feelings, emotions, beliefs, desires, possibilities, fears, visions, ideas, all the important stuff. 2, wherein the coach guides the player. Coaching is not hierarchical. Guiding another person on an adventure is a real art form. It's not the same as directing or controlling, but it's more than a passive companion. Think about the guide on a hero's journey, like Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker. They're on the adventure together, they're both actively involved, and Obi-Wan is sharing observations with Luke, but Luke makes his own choices about what to do. Another way to think of this is the Olympic coach. They're in the training center with the athlete every day, sharing the dream. Olympic athletes deeply thank their coach when they win a medal, because obviously they couldn't have done it alone, in pursuit of playing better for their dreams. Playing better is the essence and the purpose of what all coaching is about. Playfulness is an extraordinary human superpower. Helping you restore and maximize your playfulness is a big part of life coaching. But I'll get into that much deeper in a few moments, because the idea of play may be scrambling your mind right now. To ease into the exploration, here are a few ideas to help you understand what I mean by play and playfulness. Curious and creative, resourceful and resilient, explore and experiment. Fun, usually, but maybe not always. The 3 frameworks of play. There are 3 areas of life where we see play all the time. One way to get into playing for your dream is to identify one or more of these and reimagine your dream with this framework. The first one is performance art. You have talents, a voice or perspective, and something to say or share. You practice a lot to refine both your skills and your message. You use your talents to co-create experiences with your audience. 2, game athletics. The urge to compete drives you to hone your skills to perform at a high level. You enjoy the thrill of victory and embrace the difficulty of defeat. And you enjoy the camaraderie of your teammates and the competitors. The definition of compete from the ancient Greek is actually quite inspiring. It means to seek the best in oneself in the company of others likewise engaged. And the last one, number 3, is epic quest. You've been called to adventure. There's something you must do, even though it means leaving behind the comfort of your well-known surroundings and place in the world. You face great challenges in pursuit of your mission. And if you're successful, you reap some kind of reward, which you can bring back to your tribe for all to enjoy. Your dream is your vision for who you want to become and what you want to experience in the world. Through perspective observations, we're all yearning to be seen by someone who knows what they're looking at. And your coach is going to observe you as you adventure together and share with you what they see in a judgment-free way. We all have blind spots in our thoughts and our actions because we can't see ourselves very clearly. A trusted outside observer can really accelerate our growth. This is the way life is meant to be played. We're all meant to co-create life with others. Talking together is a big part of how coaching happens. The key in life coaching and life playing is to co-create a safe space for deep and provocative conversations. There are life coaches for just about every aspect of life. The niche I've recently chosen to focus on is expat coaching because it's something I've accrued years of knowledge on and personally experienced. Over many years as an educator here in Japan, I put in a tremendous amount of time and energy understanding the learning styles of my students and my teaching styles and how to utilize both in the classroom. And in my transition as a life coach, I'm now learning how to bring my unique coaching style into the coaching sessions. In my opinion, it's essential to have the following qualities if you want to be a life coach. Be able to communicate well, be passionate, empathetic, a great listener, not opinionated, non-judgmental, open-minded, curious, observant, honest, and able to challenge clients so they can gain a better understanding of themselves. An essential point to make here when looking for the best life coach is to make sure the coaching style is a good match for you. Now I want to share with you about hiring a life coach and what to look for. Before you rush into hiring a life coach and invest your hard-earned money, be sure to do some research first, or you can just contact me. But before doing that, the first step is to ask yourself if you're seriously ready to take the first step. And if so, you can pursue your dream. Number 1, find a life coach whose niche or area of expertise best matches your needs. Number 2, choose a life coach with proper training and certification. Check the International Coaching Federation, or ICF, website and check for ACC, PCC, or MCC credentials. Or choose a life coach like myself who's completed online training and is pursuing ICF certification. Be sure, of course, to check the reputation of the online institution, as there are many, since they are not obviously all the same. And number 3, choose a life coach who best matches your needs. Many coaches offer a free session, which is usually about 30 minutes. Number 4, hire a life coach whose fees are within your budget. Now I'll share some thoughts on the steps needed to become a life coach. Before investing your time and money, be sure that this is what you'd like to do and that you have the qualities necessary to be a life coach. Not everybody can be one. There are many online certification courses out there. And as you can imagine, they vary widely. Costs can range from $1,500 to over $15,000 easily. Look for a place that has International Coaching Federation or other widely recognized accreditation. And be prepared to spend a lot of time just researching and narrowing your search down and to the institutions which look most appealing and closely match what you want. Another thing to consider is whether or not you want to be a part-time or full-time coach after completing the course, which could take roughly 18 to 24 months or longer because, let's face it, life happens. I know this from personal experience, especially if you have a full-time job already and family. Geographical location matters too. Coachville operates on East Coast time, which is 13 or 14 hours behind Japan time, which meant a commitment to wake up in the wee hours of the morning each week. It was difficult, but I never regretted a single second of having to do that because becoming a life coach was what I strongly desired to be. And at some point along the path to becoming a life coach is to find your niche. There are coaches for just about anything under the sun. It took me almost, I think at least a year and a half into the certification process to decide what I wanted, that I wanted to be an expat coach specializing in transitions. Settle on a niche you're passionate about and can provide clients with your extensive experience and knowledge. And next to finally, I'd like to talk briefly about what a life coach does. A life coach encourages and counsels clients on a range of professional issues. Life coaching is distinct from giving advice, consulting, mentoring, and providing therapy. You hire a coach to help you with specific professional projects, personal goals, and transitions. A coach helps you grow by analyzing your current situation, identifying limiting beliefs and other potential challenges and obstacles you face. And then the life coach comes up with a custom plan of action designed to help you achieve specific outcomes in your life. The relationship between a client and their life coach is much more like a creative partnership than a one-way street. From your first meeting, you'll identify, clarify, and create a vision for what you want. Use your coach's expertise to modify goals as needed. Encourage self-discovery and growth. Nurture and evoke strategies and a plan of action based on what benefits, based on what fits best with your goals, personality, and vision. Foster accountability to increase productivity. One of the best things that coaches do is equip you with the methods and tactics that will help you make the right decisions for yourself and your future. They walk you through these processes regarding whatever you're working towards. Eventually, you'll start developing that problem-solving mindset that your coach is working on with you. And this mindset will start to work its way into your everyday life and really change how you go about making daily decisions. And finally, many people wonder what the difference is between a life coach and a therapist. There are a number of differences between the two. Life coaches focus mostly on the present and the future, whereas a therapist tends to focus on the past. Also, a life coach doesn't help treat issues such as depression, anxiety, or mental illness. This is why a therapist goes to school for many years to get a degree and not a certification. This should be a clear distinction between the life coach and a therapist. While a life coach may offer suggestions, new ideas, or action steps, they aren't advice givers. Instead, they listen to you and ask the right questions to help you find your path, your truth, your answers. They don't give you the answers. They help you align your life with who you are and what you want. Life coaches can help you deal with mental blocks when you're stuck or in a rut, but past issues are best suited for a therapist's help. A coach is going to be more focused on solutions that help you get from point A to point B. Whereas a therapist tends to be more focused on a certain problem you're dealing with and what got you there to begin with. Life coaching has become an incredibly popular around the world and is a billion-dollar business with lots of room for growth. There's been quite a surge in the popularity of coaching, both in the professional world and people's private lives as well. A simple reason for this is the mere fact that as humans, we tend to get stuck in certain places in our lives, whether it's due to comfort or fear, ignorance, or some other reason. And we all tend to need a little push and some guidance to get us moving and heading in the right direction again. And this is exactly what a life coach does. As a life coach, I help people who feel frustrated and stuck in their lives to come up with a clear vision for what they'd like their ideal life to look like. And then I coach them through a very specific process using very different methods and role playing, for example, that helps them achieve their big dream. In short, I help people become a better version of themselves. Again, I invite you to contact me if you decide to create a list of transitions, and we can talk about any of them and which ones have been the most important in your life. Naturally, please feel free to contact me for any other reason as well. I always welcome the opportunity to talk about anything covered today or something else, such as a free, and I do mean free, exploratory session with no expiration date. I haven't had my coffee this morning. It's been a true pleasure having this opportunity to meet other JETs, and I thank you all for attending today's presentation about life coaching. And I'd like to offer a great big thank you to Bahia and to Rose, and of course, JETAA. And to anyone who has attended today's session and those who will watch the recording at a later date and time, please contact Bahia for PDF handouts, which I'll send to her just after this presentation finishes. And those handouts have my contact information on them. So now I'd like to open up things to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm sure that most of us would put on our transition list the JET program and going to Japan. I feel like that was transformative for so many people, but obviously we all have many different transitions within our own lives. So to everybody who is here today, before we get into the Q&A, I do want to invite you to put your screen view into gallery mode. And if you feel up for it, I know a lot of people are in Japan and it's very early there. Love to see your faces and have you turn on the camera and ask some questions. Now, while you're thinking about questions to ask, you can write them in the chat if you don't want to turn on your camera and ask it live, or you can raise your hand, give me a little wave, and I will call on you to ask a question. But Jeff, I do have a few prepared for you. And first,
Sure.
I wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit about what you might expect during a coaching session. So for example, an example call or an example session, like what happens exactly?
Good question. Yeah, it just depends on what the person is contacting me about. We have a conversation, and then depending on how the conversation is going, I'll ask some key questions to get them thinking and try to find the answer for themselves. Again, life coaches don't provide the answer. It's the person themselves who comes up with the answer, but I just kind of guide them along through the conversation. And it's not just asking questions, it's maybe doing role playing or some other methods that I've learned at Coachville.
Great. Thank you. And could you tell us a little bit about your typical clients? So I know you focus on, expats. So are most of your clients in Japan? And what
Oh,
kind, I mean, if you can share, obviously, I'm sure there's client privilege, but what kinds of questions people come to you with?
Oh, yeah, I've had clients in the States and in Japan, mostly, and yeah, my most recent client came to me because he wants to be more expressive. Actually, I just started a session with him on Sunday. Maybe it's a little too early for an outcome. Obviously, too early for an outcome, but yeah, people are kind of stuck. In his case, he can't. Feels he needs help with being more assertive and speaking up. So I can help with that, and you know, when he makes presentations in particular, because he's working at a school and he's got some ideas that he wants to present to people and get his idea out there, but he's got something that's holding him back, and this is what we're working on. So that's one scenario. It just depends. Everybody's got a different need. When I was working with my first life coach about 3 years ago, I was really stressed out about something, and somebody, and she helped me work through all that, and now I'm in a much happier place and able to communicate with that person and not feel angry and stressed anymore. It just depends. Everybody's different. Everybody's needs are different.
Thanks, Jeff. We got a question in the chat, which I think is a great question. This is from John. Can you think of a favorite question that you like to ask clients to get them to open up to you?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, what can I help you with today? That's an easy one to get started with. What would you like to work on today?
Great. Does anybody here have a question? Dan.
Yes. Hello, Jeff. Thank you
Hey, Dan.
so much for this presentation. It was really
Yeah, thanks for
excellent.
joining.
And no, thank you. I have about 20 questions, but I've narrowed it down to one.
Okay, you can contact me later.
Sure. No, that'd be awesome. Yeah. So it's clear that you have so much to offer your clients. If you're comfortable sharing, I'm very interested in how you recruit clients, what some of your workflows are, that process of how do folks learn about you, and how do they book a session?
Yeah, well, it's through events like this, the JETAA presentation today, and a lot on Facebook. There are a lot of different expat Facebook groups out there in Japan and every country. I'm focusing mostly on Asia right now, Singapore and South Korea. I'm trying to get the word out that way, and I'm creating my blog and a Facebook page, sorry, a website that I hope to have up and running in the next few months or so, and a presence on what is it? LinkedIn. So that's how I'm getting the word out there and trying to connect with people, and especially the blog and the website. That'll really help.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your good question, Dan. And you don't have to ask 20, but if you have additional questions, that's
You could contact
great.
me later.
And you know, we'll probably have time to take one or two more. And you know, everybody who's here as well, if you have a question you'd like to ask, but you don't want to ask it publicly, you can also send me a private message, a direct message, and I will ask it. Before we get to audience questions, Jeff, you mentioned having a coaching. I'm kind of curious about what a coaching coach does. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Sorry, what was the question again? The sound broke up.
I was curious what a coaching coach does and how you work with a coaching coach.
Oh, well, again, it's another type of coach. I hired a coaching coach to help me become a better life coach. So, for example, I before this presentation, I worked with a coaching coach on preparing for today, practicing and rewriting again and again what I wanted to say for today. The coaching coach helped me. I know it's hard to believe. I'm usually a funny guy, but when I do, I have to be honest, it's a little bit stressful, and it's like any skill. I'm developing this skill, and this life coach, the coaching coach will help me. He's been helping me kind of lighten up a bit and try to add more humor. When I first started out, I was like a stiff, cutout cardboard shape. Now I'm a little bit more, looser and have a little bit more of a sense of humor. But that's what coaching coach helps you with, can help you with. Making presentations, helping me get myself out there, whatever I need help with. Overcoming some fear or what's the word I'm looking for? Like a block, some kind of block. It could be anything.
Great.
Japan so long I forget English.
I think most of us.
Japan a long time when.
Most of us can relate to that. So I have someone's asked a question by direct message. They ask, you discuss the difference between a therapist and a life coach. What's the difference between a school counselor and a life coach? And is there a role for life coaches in schools for students?
Yeah, again, it's, the therapist has gone to school for a long time, many years to get a degree, whereas a life coach spends maybe, could be anywhere from a year to 2 years or a little bit longer to get certification. So I don't think it would allow a life coach to go into a school and start offering therapy sessions, but there are some life coaches out there who help students maybe with some academic work, some aspect of their academic work, again, maybe making presentations. There's some fear of making presentations. And it helps the life coach will work with them in the present and so that they can move forward into the future. And they don't focus on the past like a therapist does. But you can do a Google search for life coaches. There are just so many, and in schools and elsewhere. That's a good question. But yeah, I mentioned it, talked about a little bit about the difference between a therapist and a life coach today. But yeah, you could contact me. I can explain a little bit more later, or you can Google it on the internet.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. We have a few more questions. Jesse asks if you have any resources to help aspiring coaches think of potential niches. There's so many possibilities. How do I know which is the right size scope to market well, or what's right for?
Sorry, the sound broke up again. Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. Curious to know if you have any resources to help aspiring coaches think of their potential niche. There's so many possibilities, but it's hard to know which is the right size scope to market well, or what is right for any individual.
Yeah, well, that's a hard one. And it took me about well over a year to find my niche. Whoever wants to know more, if they would like to contact me later, I'd be happy to talk about it more. I'd have to ask some questions to find out what their interests are, so that we could maybe narrow down a little bit to their niche. So whoever that is, if you'd like to contact me later, I'd be happy to help. We'll talk and try to narrow your niche down.
Great. And as a kind of a follow-up, did you feel like your Coachville training really helped you figure out that niche?
Oh yeah, definitely. I never would have arrived at, well, I shouldn't say never. It probably would have taken me an extra year or two or more to figure out what my niche was, but it definitely helped, without a doubt. I'm so happy I chose Coachville. There, as I said, there are a lot of different online certification courses out there, and when I was doing my research to try to find the right place for me, one of the problems, if you will, with Coachville is that they had too much information on their website, and other schools didn't have much, if any, but Coachville had too much, which really helped me make my decision because I could really get a sense that this was the right match for me.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And Jeff's we're gonna send out a handout after this with some additional resources. So there'll be some, I believe, links and things that you can use to do some research on your own. All right, next question. So as expats, we have to worry about our work visa statuses and whatnot. How did you make the switch into life coaching? I find that first step the most difficult.
Yeah, as I said, I just started feeling a little bit burned out teaching, and my midlife opportunity came up, and I don't know, it just seemed like I really wanted something more in life, and past life wasn't giving me what I wanted, and I needed a new path to go down. That was basically what happened. As I said, that one day when I was Googling everything from pursuit of happiness to life coaching, I know the universe has a strange way of working. Sometimes, I guess I've been lucky. Sometimes it happens pretty quickly for me. Other times it could take a week or 2 weeks or a month to find the answer, regarding what you're looking for. It just depends. But you have to put in the time and the effort to do the research and reach out to someone, a life coach who, again, you seem to have some kind of bond with, that there's a good match with.
Could you talk a little bit more for those people who are concerned about how do you stay in Japan? Are there resources for, how do you have your own business as a life coach and be able to, legally remain in Japan? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, that's a little bit of a different topic, but I have a permanent resident status. That allows me, obviously, to stay in Japan. That makes a big difference. Even when I went back to Boston for the funeral for my mother, it made it much easier to get back into Japan. Other types of visas, I don't think you can. You can probably go back to your home country, but most likely you wouldn't be able to get back into Japan. And there's actually a Facebook group for that too. If anybody's interested, I'd be happy to share that information. Again, it's a little bit of a different topic, but we're all in this boat together. So I'd like to help you out if I can, even though it doesn't have too much to do with life coaching.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think there's an interest people have in staying in Japan and trying to figure out how to do this type of work with that, when they're
really turned everything upside down.
It's a challenge for sure, but thank you so much for answering that question. Sure. So it's all right. We have a few more minutes, and there's a few more questions that I want to get through before we wrap up. First, Jeff, I do want to say I was so sorry to hear about the loss of your mother, and thank you so much for sticking with us and doing this webinar in spite of those difficulties.
Thank you, and thanks for posting it from March 26th to today.
Of course. Yeah. All right, so last few questions. We have a question. How many years have you been coaching, and what is the greatest challenge that you've faced?
I've been coaching for about 2 years. I'm actually coming on about 2.5 years. And greatest challenge. Well, let's see. Greatest challenge. Well, there's with a client and with myself. I guess greatest challenge with a client was the sessions were going well, but it was really hard to get her to respond in greater detail. She gave really short answers, and she wasn't. And this is no reflection on her. This is just her culture, maybe, where she was coming from. but it was really hard to dig to get out what was at the issue, you know, what was at the heart of the issue. I think that was the greatest challenge with her. And then with myself personally, just trying to find my niche. That took a long while. It wasn't easy. Just I did a lot of Google searches and talked with people, networking. Even though we're in the midst of a pandemic, there's still, fortunately, the internet. So I was able to network and contact people that way. But yeah, those were, I think, the two biggest challenges, personally and with a client.
Thank you. I actually had a question that's kind of similar or related. I was wondering if you've ever coached somebody where you made an observation that they couldn't accept or had a difficult time at and how you handled that situation if you faced it.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think that's ever come up yet. When I first started out, I was working with friends to get practice, and we got maybe into 2 or 3 sessions, and yeah, it was nothing personal. They just didn't want to continue because they were afraid of harming our friendship, which I can understand. So, but nothing like what you just mentioned.
Well, I hope you don't face that, but you know,
I'm sure it'll come up someday. I just have to be ready. Part of being a life coach.
So we have 5 more minutes. I just want everybody who's here, if you have a question, if you still have a question, put it in the chat, or you know, Dan, I know you said you had a few more questions. If you have another question you think would be relevant to everyone, feel free to ask it. But I do have one more question that I will ask. You talked about finding a life coach. If you want to work with a life coach, finding one whose style matches, you know, you, or that works well with you. Are there specific different styles of coaching, or what should someone look for when they're looking for style?
Sure. Yeah. And like teachers too. Teachers have their particular teaching style, and life coaches have their particular coaching style. That's why it's really important to, you know, look around. Some websites, there's usually a little biography. You know, for example, ICF, International Coaching Federation, there's a little biography about the coach. And a lot of coaches, of course, have their own websites or blogs, so you can go there and check that out. And then when you've narrowed down your search a bit, maybe contact 2 or 3 or 4 and set up a free, I call it a Coachville exploratory session. Usually it's about 30 minutes or maybe 45 minutes at the most. And it's another good way to really get to know that life coach and see if there's a good match. And then if it is, then you can, you know, arrange for a second session. And that's when that's when you have to start paying, of course. But there are some life coaches that might give 2 free sessions, but that's not too common. But again, it's important to shop around.
Oh, that's great advice. And I assume that because life coaches expect you to find someone who's a good match, they don't take it personally if you do one session with them and decide not to continue.
People say no, they don't want to continue, and yeah, that's fine. I get it.
I feel like that can be a little bit intimidating for people to,
yeah,
you know.
Well, you got to be, maybe have to be a little bit thick-skinned to be a life coach too. Let things roll off your shoulders. But yeah, if somebody says no, I don't take it personally. I get it. I did the same thing when I was looking around.
I have a final question, actually, for the audience, if anybody is awake and wants to chime in. But I'm wondering if any of you have done a session with a life coach before, and if you'd like to share anything about your experience doing that.
I can. Oh, sorry.
Okay, we got John and Jennifer. John, why don't you go first, and then we'll go to Jennifer? That's all right.
Sure, that works for me. Sorry for cutting you off, Jennifer. When I'd just like to quickly say that first and foremost, thank you very much, Jeff, for for telling us all about the coaching industry and like how to get into it, what to look out for. I will say that I'm currently in graduate school and my program is clinical mental health counseling. So you were talking about all the lists of what makes a good life coach, challenges, listens very well. And I had like all these mental tick boxes that I was ticking off as you mentioned them. So yeah, you know, you're absolutely right on that. But part of my program requires me to it requires me to do therapy on other people, first in a practicum setting and then in an internship setting. And the difference is that practicum is an internship with training wheels. And and prior to that, in my class, I get to take the role of a patient and the role of a therapist in a mock interview situation. So I have some experience with that. And I can say that being like the center of attention in a therapeutic setting was very different than what I was anticipating. And having conducted sessions on my clients as well, I can say that, you know, it's I can help them out by being an active listener. So I've experienced it before and I've given it to other people, and I can definitely say that a competent, qualified life coach can do those same things too.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. I can't wait to hear from Jennifer. I think this is going to be the last thing before we wrap up.
Hi, thank you,
Hi.
Jeff, and USJETAA for hosting this. I just wanted to say that, yeah, I'm also a life coach, and as a life coach, I also have my own life coach working with me. And I love what Jeff was talking about, that it just really helps with clarifying all the questions that you have, and you're always stuck in your mind. And I think it's just a great benefit of, you know, just talking things out and then being heard, I think is a huge thing, because we don't get that opportunity much. And I think it's just wonderful that to have a life coach to listen to you and let you work through the things in your mind. And yeah, so it's a great opportunity. And I can't, after hiring my own life coach, I can't imagine how I lived without having one. So yeah, thank you so much.
Jennifer raises a good point about our minds. I think our minds can be our own worst enemies and really hold us back. And that's really one of the benefits of hiring a life coach. They can help you kind of break free from that cycle.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you for being here. It's always great to have alumni who are doing similar things come and share their experiences as well. Now that we are out of time, I would like to wrap up. I know people have to go to work or start working. In my case, I'm going to be having dinner soon. But Jeff, thank you so much for being here
thank you,
today.
Bahia.
Really enjoyed hearing your story. I'll do a final plug for USJETAA. If you are not yet a member, please become a member. We'd love to have you. It is free, though there are options if you would like to help support our programs. And then lastly, I'd also like to mention that the School for International Training, where Jeff did his master's, I believe, now has a JET alumni scholarship and offers a 30% tuition waiver and covers the application fee. So there's a number of different programs, and we worked very hard to set up that relationship. So if that's something you're interested in, I put information in the chat. All right, so thank you so much. Thank you, Rose, for coming to us with this idea. It's great to collaborate with JETAA Western Japan. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your experience. And thank you for all of you being with us today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good day.
We'll send out some handouts soon. All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye.